Hey there, folks. Brian Nichols here on today's episode of CX Without the BS. This one is a little bit different because if you've ever cold called, managed a sales dev team, or wondered why your outbound just isn't hitting, today I am joined by John Karsant from LevelUp Leads, where we're diving into the real first step of CX, the moment your prospect actually picks up the phone. We're going to talk about tone, timing, and how SDRs can stop sounding like robots and start building real relationships that actually drive pipeline. All right, let's get into it. John Karsant here on CX Without the BS. John, thanks for joining the show. How you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on, Brian.
Absolutely. I know we've been connected on LinkedIn there for a while. I thought it was well past due the time for us to actually hop on a call together and start talking through all the cool things you're doing. And I thought, let's go ahead and put this on the podcast because, I look at CX not just from the perspective of customer support and such, but, when we reach out and in the outbound motion, we're talking to customers or prospects for the first time, I think that's really where the customer journey begins. We had Adam Rosen here on the show from the email outreach company recently, and he was talking about that as well. So I think there's some commonalities there, but I'm looking forward to this conversation. Do us a favor, introduce yourself here to the audience and just tell us a little bit more about LevelUp Leads.
Yeah, sure. So I'm John Karsant, the founder and CEO of LevelUp Leads. Started the company about 4 years ago. We're a sales development and appointment setting company. So we have a bunch of SDRs in-house. We have about 40 of them right now. Clients hire us to go out, run campaigns, and set up appointments for them so their sales reps have more selling opportunities.
Love it. That's my old world, right? I was in sales dev. I love this stuff, right? Talking about getting SDRs actually on the phone, doing the hard work, reaching out to prospects. It's not an easy gig, man.
Definitely not.
And how about this? Let's start here because I don't know about you. I've gotten cold called though many a time, and you can tell like when there's an SDR or a BDR, whatever you want to call them, right? Like if you get somebody who's doing that outbound and you can just tell that they are dialing another name on a list, right? Like it comes through the phone, and in my personal opinion, if I can hear that you just don't want to talk to me and you're doing this to check a box, I'm probably not going to be as invested in this call or, invested in hearing what you have to offer. Is that something that you're seeing when you're taking SDRs and trying to get them into an outbound motion? Like, is that like one of the original hurdles you have to overcome?
Yeah. I mean, look, it's no one likes to do this job. No one wants to do a cold calling forever. Right. But there's a reason why services like ours exist, because they don't want to manage it and do it all in house. But when it comes to actually doing it successfully, there's a lot of things you have to look for in the SDR, but what we like to do is give the SDR scripts, but they don't have to follow it word for word, because that's exactly what you're talking about. It's like you can kind of tell when they're reading a script, it's coming off as robotic, it's coming off as like not personal at all. So you have to have a little bit of personality in there. I know people say smile and dial, but follow something like that. Like if you're smiling, you're having a good time, it will resonate, or people will be able to pick that up in the call. And you just have to understand, not everyone's going to want to buy from you. In fact, most people aren't. You're really looking for the 3 to 5 people out of every 100 that you talk to that are, right? Or you can start building up relationships. Not everyone's going to be in a buy now mode, but you can start building those relationships, send them some information, follow up with them when they ask you to, and then you can start building a pipeline and actually close some deals later on, not just right now.
Let's look more and maybe unpack a little bit more about the building relationship side. Because I used to have SDRs who I had one SDR named Tim. I love Tim, but he would do his calls, and I'd be like, "Hey Tim, how'd your day go?" "Oh, Brian, nobody wants to buy. Nobody's buying anything." I'm like, "Okay, tell me more. Like, what are some of the conversations you had?" And it'd be like, "Oh, this guy, he said, oh yeah, no, we just did budgeting, and he just hung up on me." And I'm like, "Okay, but like, that's not a no." Right? That's just that's not a right now. That's not him rejecting you, or heck, even rejecting your offer. It's just you caught him at a moment when he wasn't in a trigger event or a buying opportunity. So it's not that he's not a good person to talk to or to have in your follow-up cadences, but rather to somebody you should be saying, "Hey, no worries. Let me invest this time, energy, and effort to show you that I'm a real person and I'm representing a real company, build that relationship. And how about this? When the time is right? Like then we can have a conversation. That part really gets overlooked. So tell us more about what you see for like SDRs when they're going through this outbound motion. Like, what are some of the best tips or takeaways to actually build real, and this is the key word, authentic relationships with these prospects that they're reaching out to?
Yeah. So one thing that comes to mind is, let's just say you're in the scenario that you're talking about. They say, "Oh, I'm not interested now," and there's ways to get around that. How about, "Oh, hey, yeah, cool, no worries. What about this? I can send you some information. You could just so you have in your back pocket, so you can, when your team does evaluate this, that you have some information." Or what about, "Hey, no worries. I get, now's not the right time. What about this? Can I connect with you on LinkedIn? I'm actually on your LinkedIn page right now. Can I shoot you a connect and stay connected? I post there about 2 to 3 times a week, and I'd love to just kind of maybe get some updates on what you guys are doing at your company." That's a great way to connect. And then they're going to start seeing you, right? They're going to start seeing your face. If they're not, then you can DM them, right? It's just another channel that you can get in touch with them. That's one that comes to mind, and I think a very authentic way to connect with somebody. And plus, they're going to be looking out for it now, right? If you're on the phone and you say, "I'm going to connect with you," now they're like, "Oh yeah, I remember I had that conversation with John earlier today. Oh yeah, cool, accept."
Let's dig a little bit more about like actually curating interest and building these online personas, because I see a lot of SDRs out there who like, and tell me if this rings true to you, John, right? You see a LinkedIn connection request, you say, "Okay, yeah, this looks like an okay person," accept, and then 15 seconds later, bing, message
Automation.
in your inbox. Yeah, all the time, right? Like, there it is. There's that LinkedIn request, right? And then there's the message. And it's usually something salesy. "Hey, Brian, was over on your page. I noticed that you're the channel manager for Level 365. We've been doing X, Y, and Z. Worth a chat," right? I can almost guarantee that we've all seen something like that. Tell the audience a little bit more about how to do effective outbound connections beyond like talking to somebody on the phone and saying, "Hey, I'm going to send over a LinkedIn request." Like, you're going through LinkedIn, you're trying to curate a list of potential folks to reach out to. Like, what's the best practice there? And how do you, as an SDR, come through as, again, that keyword authentic versus just the commission hungry, the commission breath salesperson?
Mm-hmm. Well, definitely, I would recommend the phones. But now that your question is, how are you doing this, let's say on LinkedIn, there's a few different ways to go about it. I said part of it would have to do with how big is your network, how big are you on LinkedIn already. One thing that is helpful for people that have bigger audiences is you might have a lot of connections in common with the person you're reaching out to, and that's always a signal of accepting on the other end, right? And I do the same thing. If someone sends me a connection request and I have 100 plus common connections, almost a guarantee I'm going to accept, right? It's just like, "Oh, okay, cool. We know a lot of the same people." If you don't, then that's where it gets a little bit more challenging. So then you guys have to start getting creative in what you're saying. That could involve some manual effort, going to their website or going to their LinkedIn page and just trying to pick something out. Remember, Brian, when you and I talked a long time ago, we started talking about football a lot, right?
That's
maybe
right.
maybe they like a sports team. Maybe you could throw something in there like, "Hey, just connecting here. Saw you're also like whatever, the Cleveland Cavaliers." And then you can throw something out about your team or something about a big series, or maybe they won the World Series lately. That's a way to connect on a personal level. The other thing is, like, what's your intention behind it? Are you really looking to sell them something, or do you actually just want the connection? So think of it more like a demand gen, that you can be a presence there and be top of mind, and it's for them to see your posts. Because one good way to get people to accept is just say, "Hey, look, connecting, not here to pitch you anything." Most people are going to be like, "Okay, cool. This person's not," assuming they live up to their word, "they're not going to be pitching me anything, but just a connection."
I want to go back to the first piece you said, and that was, well, phones first, though, right? And this is something I actually was talking about with Adam when he was on the show. Now, Adam's from the email outreach company. Obviously, they're doing outreach via email, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of value there, I think. But to your point, and this is, I can't agree more, right? There is so much more oomph behind a phone call than there is just getting another email. And Adam, when we were talking yesterday, he was talking about actually yesterday, we were talking last time. He was talking about the 3 areas that is really difficult for email. First is landing in the inbox. Second is getting the right copy. And then third is getting the right list the right list to make sure you're reaching out to the right people. Number 2 and 3, I mean, copy, that's your scripting, right? So that's stuff that we do. Getting the right list. Yeah, I need to know who the buyer personas are, what verticals we're going after. Are we going after champions, economic buyers, blah, 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 right? But the first piece, getting into their inbox. We spent a lot of time in that conversation talking about email inbox hygiene, having multiple domains going out at once because of how strict the rules have gotten with like Gmail and Outlook, for example, in the spam filters. And this is where my brain, I think, and you're spot on, right? It speaks to the importance not just of doing the outreach, but doing a multi-thread outreach. And you mentioned, again, using the phones. Let's talk about that. Like, what in your experience is the value with leveraging the phone calls relative to all the other mediums that are out there?
Phones are king. And I wish that weren't the case because it's the most expensive channel for us to run, but it's what's working. So that's what we recommend to our clients. Like we also do email. We do recommend that you can layer that in, but I'd be doing my clients a disservice if I said, oh yeah, just run email and this is going to actually work. Like maybe, but not to the extent that they have in their mind. So cold calling, here's why, is you can actually have conversations with people. And a lot of companies are still trying to figure out who's my ICP, why, how's our new product release, like what is important to them, what's not. And you can actually get feedback from conversations. So let's say you're an SDR and let's say you guys just released a new product, or maybe you're targeting a new industry, or maybe you're targeting a new region. You can start getting feedback. You don't even need to get obviously you want to get the meeting, right? But if they're not interested or they're using a competitor, all it takes is, hey, by the way, how come you're using them? Like, what makes them so good? Or you can say, hey, we released this. Does this sound interesting to you? Like, you can start getting feedback because you're actually having a conversation. And then you can go back and make pivots to your outreach. So that could be to the script, that could be to the targeting, that could be feedback to, in our case, our client of what's resonating, what's important from the actual users. So the feedback loop is just so much tighter. Whereas email, unfortunately, you probably aren't going to get those responses. They're probably going to get ignored.
Yeah, you'll get the you'll get the silent treatment. I never really liked that. That's never a good thing.
Not
so
fun.
yeah, not fun at all. But I think you're really hitting on something that's important to focus on a little bit more here on, John. Right? It is that real life feedback loop. When you're on a phone call with someone, you can tell and better understand where you're gonna fit and why versus any marketing doc you're going to get, right? Like I've seen as I've helped dozens of companies go through and like redo their ICP and buyer personas and go to market strategies. And I, it's funny because I have this quote, like this line I hear from folks is we'll sit down. I'll say, who's your ideal buyer? Who's the champion? Who's the economic buyer? And they'll go through and they'll give me their list. And then as we talk through how their solution helps solve a problem or, creates more, positive experiences or, positive ROI, whatever it may be. And then we start to really dig into who's getting the valuable impact from that. I can almost hear every one of these, whether it's a sales leader or a CEO, they'd be like, oh, so this is who we should be reaching out to, right? And there's almost this moment of like an epiphany. They're like, oh, I've been going after the wrong, the wrong person this entire time. I've been trying to sell this big block of ice to Eskimos. Oh, they don't need it. That's right. Okay, this is who I should be focusing on. I should be focusing on the person in the desert who they really want a nice cold glass of water, right? And there is just this eye-opening moment for them when they see that all that time, energy, and effort being spent going after who they thought should use their product could have been so much better just actually having conversations with folks across the board who's getting the value from their product or service, right? So I guess, that is one thing I really want folks to pay attention to, because going back to the ethos of this show, customer experience, if you're trying to solve problems for your customers that are problems that they don't have, then that's not going to equal to a more positive customer experience, because you become at that point more of just another thing, right? I mean, right now we are in the era of AI everything, right? Everybody has some AI tool or subscription service they're using. You're darn right that I'm paying attention to, is this tool actually helping me, or is it slowing me down, or is it just white noise? And if it's a white noise app, I'm probably going to go ahead and nuke it. Like I'm not going to spend 20, 30 bucks a month on an app I'm not really using, or I'm not getting a lot of value from. It's not that that's not a good product, but if they're able to present that product or solution in a different way to show a different type of value, all of a sudden I'm like, oh, maybe there is a lot of value here that I could start to dig into. Like, for example, I know everybody is using like those AI transcription apps, right, for work and such. I didn't really have a need for that back when this first became a thing, but I definitely needed it for my podcast. I needed to take the interviews and upload those interviews into the AI app so I could get a transcript and then put that transcript to YouTube and then have that be an SEO optimization tool. So like, if you were to come to me as a salesperson from one of those companies and just be, hitting hard on the value from a business standpoint, I'm going to be like, dude, that's great. That's not me. Right. But if you were to like, hey, we're seeing a lot of podcasters and such, or business owners who leverage podcasts to help grow their businesses, using this to help get transcriptions for SEO and then turn that transcription into a blog post, right? All of a sudden, oh, you're speaking my language. And right there, speaking my language. Talk to us, John, about the importance of understanding your prospect's language and entering into that conversation in a way that how they would normally communicate. Like what's the importance there, and what are some of the best practices as you've seen when maybe SDRs or BDRs have very, very like diverse personas that they're going after on a daily basis?
So when you were talking, you mentioned the like not getting feedback from users. And so on my podcast, I've had a few product-led founders on and asked them about their biggest mistakes. And they said, I was building thinking I knew what my clients wanted, but I never asked them. So I ended up building things that they actually never wanted. And it was like some of their biggest mistakes. And so that just resonated with me when you were talking through that. But in terms of the messaging and like what is going to really hit home with the people you're reaching out to, well, that may vary depending on title, right? There may be multiple influencers on the decision-making process. So you might want to customize that a little bit if you're reaching out to someone in finance versus technology. Some of the best ways, though, is to go and look at your reviews from your customers. Maybe that's on G2 or Clutch. How are they describing what you solved for them? Another one is look at case studies. How did the client describe, when you ask for feedback, how did they describe that in their own words? And then you could start using some of that in your outreach. That's probably one of the best ways you can resonate with certain seniority levels and titles within a company.
But John, what if I don't have any reviews on G2? What if I don't have any case studies? What do I do then?
Shut down your company. No.
Pack it in. Good luck.
I mean, that's when that's just part of starting a business and getting something off the ground, is you need to do that work yourself. So that could be, maybe you have some of that already because you're coming over from a different company, some of this, but that's some of the discovery you're going to have to figure out, whether that's you or someone in sales on the front lines, actually getting this feedback. Also back to the point of what we were mentioning earlier about the cold calling. Well, these are actually conversations. You can start asking these questions. Okay. You just got rejected. They said they just signed up for another year extension with their provider. Why'd you do that? How come you like them? Right? And you start understanding these things. And so those are certain things you can take back and start implementing in your outreach.
What are some of the, I'm going to use the word completely avoidable. Is that a word? That's a hyphenated word. Completely avoidable. I'll make it hyphenated. Completely avoidable mistakes that SDRs and BDRs make when they're starting outbound. Maybe they're brand new to the industry, right? Or maybe they're brand new to the role. Like, what are some of those, just like, yeah, I see this all the time, just to kind of give like a little overview of things to watch out for?
Probably the first two that come to mind is over talking. So talking too much and not asking good enough questions to get your prospects to open up, right? You're not going to be able to learn anything from the prospect and what's important to them if you're doing all the talking. So you need to start asking questions sooner and get them to open up. so that based on the information they give you, you can then start building off of that.
I'll add one, and that is not listening, right? Like I've seen this. It's this like mentality of I have my script and I just gotta get through it. Right? Mm-hmm. I'll give my pit, I'll give my CTA, and fingers crossed they say yes. If not, okay, goodbye. Right? Yeah. Like actually being a participant in a conversation versus just being the person reading a script.
100%. I've seen SDRs receive a no and they kind of keep going as if it was a yes. You're like, wait, did you not listen to what they just said? You can't keep going down your script if it just didn't make any sense. You have to actually have a conversation with people.
Let's actually laser focus on that for a second. Like I said a no, did you not hear me? Right? There is and I might be ruffling some feathers here in the greater sales outbound world, but I'm not a big fan of this mentality of needing to overcome objections. And here's why. I promise there's context behind my craziness here, right? Like if we put ourselves in the shoes of a prospect, truly like the empathy in the truest form of the word, right? And understand like, okay, I'm an SDR, I'm calling this prospect. Their phone rings. Maybe they just finished using the bathroom. They just finished walking out of a meeting. They're getting ready to go on an airplane, whatever it may be. Like who is this number? Who's this 317 number? I'll answer it really quick. Maybe it's a customer. Hello. Oh, it's an SDR. It's a sales call. Okay, God. I'll take it. Whatever. Oh, he's a nice guy, but I'm not interested right now. I'm literally, this is just not a good time. He's arguing with me. He's fighting me, right? And that right there, this objection perspective I've heard where people, you give an objection. Oh yeah, we're under contract. Well, Mr. Prospect, a lot of my customers were also under contract when we first started, right? And we all can see how those objections usually come out. I prefer personally to block objections. So, if you're calling a persona, let's say it's a finance chief, whatever, right? And that budgeting timeframes is usually the number one objection you're going to get. And by the way, this is not my brain thinking of blocking objections. This is my mentor there, Victor Antonio, he's been a big proponent of the idea of blocking objections. So the way that might look is, hey, Mr. CFO, it's Brian here from LevelUp Leads. Hey, reason for my call: we've been doing a lot of work with CFOs who are looking to cut costs in the telco spend. And one of the big areas they're looking to cut is long-term contracts. And one of the things I usually hear is like, hey, budgeting season, it's not a good time. And we hear that. We usually would enter a conversation when you'd be starting budgeting versus like any time that we're calling you. Hey, just want to get in your radar and see if that's something you want to talk about. So I've addressed the elephant in the room. You probably have an objection. It's probably not budgeting season right now, but maybe there's a conversation worth having. I guess, John, do you see value in that type of approach, or is there something that you've been showing, at LevelUp Leads that is more effective beyond just blocking objections or actually responding to them? Is there something else that you see work?
I like what you mentioned is calling it out. So if you get ahead of it and you can mention it, then they almost like they can't say that because you've already mentioned it and it as a topic. That's going to be helpful when you're working, like in our case, we're working for many different companies. Now the SDR will be focused on a company, but it's much easier when you're just working for one company over and over again, and you can start maybe adjusting the scripts because the most common objections. Let's see, you were mentioning earlier, I'm going to draw a blank. I am drawing a blank. I had another talking point, but anyways, forget it.
Sorry, my bad. I say a lot of things sometimes, and then I say too much, and I make my guests forget what they're going to say. And then I forget what I was going to say next. But how about this? Like, we talk about the importance, and maybe this is we as in like the greater sales world, the importance of outbound. But I hear a lot of folks, they almost have this allergy, John, to a true sales motion. Like I actually called one technology advisor company. Their name will remain nameless here for this conversation. But I was talking to, I forget, it was like I think it was their receptionist, but they were acting much more aggressive on the phone than they probably should have. And they're like, oh, well, we don't give any information to people who do solicitations. And I was like, do you have a sales team? How do they do outreach, right? Like, do people just show up, right? Are they just a bunch of zoo bears and they get handed steaks every single day? Or are they out there hunting? And I don't know if it's like this old school perspective that, and maybe it's not even old school, just like there's this perspective that cold calling, doing a true sales motion is bad. Where did that come from? And I guess, do you see that a lot in your industry too?
Well, what's funny is I've seen specific posts of people, they tend to be in IT or security, and they will talk smack about cold calling. They can't believe it's, delete their number. And then people will go to the company and look at the open job posts, and it's SDRs required to cold call. And it's just funny because they don't realize that's how their own company is actually generating business and ultimately paying this person's paycheck. Look, you have to understand what's working. You have to try these different channels. You understand where are people living, right? It doesn't make sense to reach out to someone on LinkedIn if it's a janitor and they're not on LinkedIn or whatever. That's an extreme example. But the point is you want to be contacting people where they're likely to be. Another one would be like plant managers at manufacturing plants. Well, they're not on LinkedIn very much, and they tend to not be in front of their computer much. They're on the on the floor, whereas phone calls are going to be the best, right? So you kind of have to understand and test out where are these people living and what are the best channels to get in touch with them.
So you mentioned, the job postings, right? Going and seeing like, oh, this org actually has SDRs, and this IT director had no idea, right? And they're laughing at folks doing sales. But like, let's talk about the value of job postings, because this is one thing I used to teach my SDRs quite a bit, was if you don't know what the levers to pull would be for a specific persona, go look for that type of personas, like a job posting in that world. So maybe it's like IT director or chief information officer or telecom manager, or something in that world. I'm in the tech space, right? Like it might be that, or maybe it's on the other side of the aisle. Maybe it's someone who is, a chief financial officer or a controller or, a sales dev leader, right? And to understand like, what are the KPIs, those key performance indicators that they're being measured on, and like when companies are posting for that, obviously that's things they're going to be paying attention to. So what would you say is an effective way to take that kind of scoping and data mining there beforehand and putting that into a process? Because it is hard to do that for every one-off. Is it safe to start to create assumptions, create kind of rules? Like what's your expert opinion there?
You bring up a perfect example of trying to understand what is important to a specific role or department, and then you can include that in your script. Hey, when I talk to IT directors, typically the most important things or top priorities on their plate are X and Y. How are you currently overcoming this? Or does that sound like hitting that on the head, or is there other things that are top priority for you? And so like you can actually start addressing those things, and it might spark a better conversation rather than getting shut down very quick. Because if you can speak their language and show that you know them and what are their main concerns, you're going to get better conversations.
Tell us more about speaking their language. What does that look like in practice?
Well, what you mentioned is a great example. Is if there's a job post, you can pick certain things out of that. Speaking their language, I would go back to the customer testimonials. But one thing that's really cool about job posts is oftentimes they'll put the certain technologies they're using. Oh, we're on Google Cloud, or we use the dialer, or we're using whatever platform. And so you can start, oh, okay, that's my competitor. Or, oh, yeah, we integrate with that. And so you can start actually tying that in. Now, those are one-offs, right? So it's a little bit harder to create an entire campaign around that, but it is one way to speak directly to the person and stand out. That could be also a good way to stand out in an email campaign. Hey, saw you're using XYZ software, or maybe you attended this conference. And it's one way to stand out, because otherwise what's happening in a lot of emails these days is, unless you, like in the preview screen, unless you know exactly who that is or that company, you're likely deleting it. Like I'm starting to not even look at emails now. I kind of like look at the preview, look at who the person is and what the subject line is. And if it's not resonating or standing out, I'll just delete it.
Yeah, I do that too, man. And like this right here, this is the modern world that not only sellers are in, right? Knowing that your outbound is probably getting just either put right to spam or the mental spam filter, right? But on the other side, as the buyer, they're getting hit with dozens, if not hundreds, of types of outreach every single week on multiple different channels. They might be getting hit with email, phone calls, LinkedIn. I mean, across the gambit. I still see snail mail every now and then, which I'm like, good for you. So I guess, with that being said, John, like, what's the best practice? I know you like the phone call, but like, is it a little bit of everything? Is it leaning into one medium over the other? What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are you should start building inbound and outbound channels, right? You can't outbound. So here, let me break this down for you. In outbound, you can target the right person and the right types of companies, but you don't know the timing, right? So you're missing that. You don't know that in most cases. But in inbound, you typically have the timing, but you don't know if it's the right company or the right title. So by combining the two, you're essentially able to check all the boxes. I just don't think you're going to be running outbound entirely and build a successful company off that. It can be part of the process, but it's just a lot easier if someone's already looking for your product and you show up as a reputable company and then they inquire with you. Now, there's also some benefit to doing outbound, and then people might go start looking for you, right? They might start looking for your reviews, or they go to your website, or they check out your podcast. And so there's a form of outbound that creates inbound. That's why I think doing both is very important.
So Tom Milligan, who he and I started this show together back when we were both working together at Sharpen. And Tom, he's recently joined a different org. I'm obviously at a different org myself, but Tom's one of my favorite people in this world, and I'm looking forward to having him back on the show as co-host sometime soon. But when Tom and I were at Sharpen together, we were building out some campaigns, and we took the approach together of what we were calling political signage. And the idea being is, hey, when you're driving down the street and it's election season, and mind you, we were having this conversation in August of 24, right? So get ready. You're going to see election signs everywhere. You're driving down the road and you see all these different signs, vote for John Smith, vote for, Gary Oldman, whoever it may be. And those signs aren't meant to get you to make a buying decision right then and there, right? What they're meant to do is to keep that candidate's name top of mind. So when you go to the voting booth, right, to your point, now you're an inbound customer almost in that sense. Now it's a matter of who do I vote for? Who do I bring to the table as an option, or in this case, actually cast my ballot for? And it's like, oh yeah, I remember John Smith. I saw his name like a million times. That's right, that guy. Yeah. That piece is where I'm finding our marketing is really going. And I know like there's this weird like head to head between marketing and sales. I frankly look at them as kissing cousins. Like we need each other in this case. And to your point, the inbound piece here, being able to market yourself, but it goes away, maybe not so much marketing as a team, but more so like a true authentic kind of marketing where you're putting out content that's your own content or taking a unique spin, but just being present, right? And I see this way too often. Like folks will only use LinkedIn to reach out directly to folks to sell something. If I go to their page, they haven't posted in 2 years. And I'm like, my man, I don't know you. I've never seen your stuff. It's not ringing a bell. But if I connect with a guy, to your point, earlier when we were just kind of curating these LinkedIn requests and connections, like, they might not be a buyer today, but if you're posting stuff that has value and you're consistent, so you're staying in their feed and you're staying like the political signs top of mind, when the time comes that there is a pain point or a trigger event or something that makes them go into a buying decision, guess who should be, by just the nature of what you're doing for your political signage, guess who should be top of list? Should be you. So like, tell me more about like what you've seen to be some effective political signage from a LevelUp Leads perspective.
So one thing I've seen here play out multiple times is whether I had a conversation with somebody or I was just a connection with them. To your point, is they weren't either in the in the shoot, like they weren't in the role to make the decision, or it just wasn't, the timing wasn't right, but they moved companies and then they called me right away.
Yep.
It was like, oh, but now they're in a new company, they have more authority, and who they think of, the person that was top of mind. It's happened way more than you would expect. So just because you're talking to someone, they may be telling the truth. Hey, this isn't a priority for us. Don't have the budget, whatever. But if you're not top of mind, you're never going to even come up in conversation, right? So the other thing I'd say is some companies, literally, they are trying to sell to somebody, and that decision is only made once a year or once every 2 years. It's not like, oh, I can just switch from this dialer or this email automation platform to the other one in the next week, right? Or you're on a monthly subscription. These are multi-year commitments. And so the buying decision only happens ever so often. And so like that is when you really want to be more top of mind. You're not trying to push them into making a decision, because when that decision comes, you want them reaching out to you. So there's lots of different scenarios here.
Here. Well, John, I just looked at the time. I didn't realize we're already over the half-hour mark. So shame on me. I'm keeping us late. But let's do this as we go towards the tail end of the conversation. Obviously, you're doing amazing things with the team over at LevelUp Leads. You're actually helping organizations start that outbound motion and start curate some pipelines. So let's do this. For folks who've been listening today, they're like, all right, this John guy, he's got to figure it out. What's the best way for them to reach out, connect, and, whether it's they're in a buying decision right now, they're looking for some help, or maybe, just it'd be good to have you in their back pocket down the road. What does that look like? And what are some of the services you guys offer at LevelUp Leads?
Yes, the best way to contact us is the website, levelupleads.io, or my LinkedIn. I'm pretty active there, John Karsant. Packages will vary off a channel and volume within the channel, but pricing starts at around $5K a month, and it's essentially plug and play, which is really cool. You don't need to get into, look at that, you're on the website. You don't need to get into hire a agency to help you source the SDRs. You don't need to pay for the annual subscriptions. You don't need to pay for training or ramp. You essentially get to hire a company that's already ready to go. Plus, there's no charge for onboarding. So your month starts literally the day the campaigns are launched.
There you go. All right. Well, how about this, John? We'll go ahead and we will leave all those links for folks that are interested in securing LevelUp Leads services in the show notes. Also, you're big over on LinkedIn, so go ahead, give John some love over there. And of course, let him know you heard him over on CX Without the BS. But John, it is that time of the show where we ask the one question we ask every single guest, and that is, John, over the past calendar year, now, granted, I know you're more in a sales dev world, so let's just kind of maybe the overarching customer journey experience. But what is the one big piece of BS that you've been seeing in this industry, across the board? It could be, again, sales related, technology related, a combination of the two. What are your thoughts?
I'd say the biggest piece of BS right now is AI SDRs. I think there's a world for them to exist, and there's use cases. But as we talked on this podcast, is the phones are where most value and the best results are happening right now. And cold calling is illegal for AI in the United States. So
really,
yeah. Can you imagine how many phone calls you'd be getting every day if it wasn't?
I guess I didn't realize it was actually illegal. Yeah.
So you have to opt in order for AI to be able to talk with you. So that could be like customer support, or you inquire on their website, or you click an ad. But in terms of pure cold outbound, it's illegal to cold call.
No kidding. No. So how are all these organizations that are out there like getting away with that?
With the AI? I mean, I don't know. They must have opted in. Maybe it was like into an email list or something in the past, or they're breaking the law. Could also be the other thing they're doing. But yeah, so that's the biggest BS. And I haven't actually tried it out myself, but I haven't seen any positive feedback on LinkedIn or anyone I've talked to. It's all been, underwhelming. So that's the biggest piece of BS that I've seen in this space lately.
This is interesting, John. I'll leave us with this. There has been a reoccurring theme in this show when we asked that final question about what's the biggest piece of BS. And we've been doing the show now for well over a year, and it almost always is something in regards to the either AI or automation. And that I think that really speaks to how we as humans, we have this weird instinctual like reaction to hit the easy button. Like we want to just like set it and forget it, the old Ronco style, right? Like just, okay, we got that going. I got my email campaign going, just like let that go for 4 years and never look at it again. We got AI, great. AI is going to just do the outbound for me. Like that right there, that's interesting. Automation and AI. I wonder what it is about our brains that we just want to take that easy path. Is it the instant gratification? Is it, I don't know. What I mean, do you have any feedback to that before we wrap things up?
I mean, there's just so much noise out there. AI is certainly changing things and it's very useful, but I think there's a lot of new products and capabilities. And it's just like not everything as good as it's making it out to be, or the use case isn't there. So I just think there's a lot of noise and you just have to pick and choose what to actually set up. The other thing I'd say is it's a lot to manage. So you still need a human behind it, telling it what to do. So sometimes people forget that there's a management aspect to it.
My grandpa used to call things that were seemingly in unbelievable. He'd call them PFM, or pure effing magic, which I think a lot of folks have looked at AI as that PFM. But the reality is it's not just by itself magic, right? It is a tool. It's a tool in the tool belt. And yeah, you got to be careful with the set it and forget it. You're right. You need to have the people behind the scenes who actually have the know-how, being able to make things work. So, John, this has been a great conversation. I really, really appreciate you taking some time. Any final thoughts before we say goodbye today?
No. Thanks for having me on, Brian.
All right, folks. Huge shout out to John for joining us today, dropping some serious truth on today's episode. And if you got some value from this conversation, whether you're in CX, outbound sales, or trying to get your SDR team unstuck, do me a favor, reach out to John over on LinkedIn, or go ahead and check him out over at LevelUpLeads.io. And this is what we do here, folks, on CX Without the BS. No gimmicks, no fluff, just real conversations that actually move the needle. All right, we're going to go ahead and put a pin in today's conversation. That's it from me. I'm Brian Nichols from CX Without the BS. We'll see you in our next one.